Naledi Pandor.
Maxeke is joining us as well, our acting DG, Ambassador Losi, and all our DDGs. We've prepared a brief statement that I will read out. That, of course, doesn't mean you shouldn't listen in to the virtual budget speech. Greetings to all of you from a very cold Cape Town. Our theme for this year's budget is Building Back Better, honoring the legacy, advancing the legacy of Charlotte Maxeke. Our government declared 2021 the year of Charlotte Maxeke. Our theme, therefore, celebrates this remarkable woman who would have turned 150 years this year. In celebrating her legacy, we would like to reflect on her internationalism. Daluxolo Molwantwa, in his article titled The Remarkable Life of Charlotte Maxeke, tells the story of how Charlotte Maxeke used her singing talent to travel the world, flying South Africa's flag high on the global stage, gaining international stardom. Let me start by telling you how Mama Charlotte became the first Black woman in South Africa to graduate with a Bachelor of Science degree from Wilberforce University in Ohio, the United States of America. Mama Charlotte Maxeke and her choir members were left stranded and penniless in the streets of New York after their choir conductor had vanished with all their money. Her name was recognized from newspaper reports by Bishop Daniel Payne of the African Methodist Church in Ohio. He went on to offer her an international scholarship to study in the United States. The scholarship emerged from a crisis and was indeed an act of international solidarity, the kind of solidarity that Mama Charlotte reciprocated through her work locally here at home and internationally. It is therefore no accident that the ANC and the governments that it has led have made solidarity with the oppressed and marginalized a cornerstone of our foreign policy. Mama Charlotte Maxeke championed several programs, including arranging opportunities for other South Africans, particularly women, to study at Wilberforce University in America. She was indeed building back better based on her experience. Her story and the values of Ubuntu exemplified resonate with us as DIRCO. The core of our foreign policy is to improve the living conditions of South Africans and contribute to the well-being of our fellow Africans, as well as all those who are yearning for freedom, for peace, and for prosperity in the world. It is in our interest that Africa and the world is peaceful, politically united, and economically prosperous. In honoring the legacy of Mama Charlotte Maxeke, DIRCO will next month launch the Charlotte Maxeke African Women's Economic Justice and Rights Initiative. Its objectives will be to mobilize the global community behind the Global Acceleration Plan, particularly the Action Coalition to which we belong on economic justice and rights. The initiatives we propose will be implemented in 3 phases. The Charlotte Maxeke Africa Future Leadership Program. The program will provide mentorship and training opportunities for youth on international policy and diplomacy work. It will be launched in June this year and will target 70% young leaders from the continent and 30% from our country. The second is the Charlotte Maxeke African Women Leadership Award. The awards will celebrate women leaders across the continent. They will recognize and honor exceptional African women leaders whose achievements, mentorship, influence, and contributions have advanced Africa's development in various sectors of society. The awards will also recognize exceptional contributions to the advancement of gender equality and women's empowerment. The third is the Charlotte Maxeke Ministers' Breakfast with Women Ambassadors. This will be an annual breakfast with women ambassadors accredited to South Africa to provide the opportunity for me as Minister and our department to engage women ambassadors on issues internationally of gender equality, responsiveness, and women's empowerment initiatives across the globe. We plan a second phase as well. The details of the second phase, which is scheduled to start in 2022-23, will include programs such as the Charlotte Maxeke African Women's Leadership Training Program on Economic Justice and Right, the Charlotte Manya Maxeke Fellowship for African Women in Diplomacy, and the Charlotte Maxeke Women's Trade Fair. We will provide further details on these in our next budget speech and later this year. On the budget, our budget for 2020-21, the last financial year, was set at 6.850 billion in April 2020. It was reduced to 6.314 billion in the year. The DIRCO budget for 2022, current financial year, was initially announced at 7 billion.038 in the 2021 budget speech, and has now been finally, we hope, reduced to 6 billion.452 for the current financial year. We set out in our annual report the trends of expenditure of our department in the previous financial year and the anticipated expenditure for 2021-22. And what you will see are ongoing reductions, which are a significant concern. During the 2020 medium-term budget policy statement, our Minister of Finance, in his presentation, prioritized fiscal consolidation with a focus on primary reduction of the wage bill in narrowing the budget deficit and the search for stability of debt over the next 5 years in order to return our public finances to a sustainable position. There has been a clear signal that we need to learn to do more with less as a result of the fiscal constraints confronting our government and our country. The outbreak of COVID-19 has also presented new challenges to the economic climate we are forced to operate in. The department's spending on compensation of employees has for several years been above the available budget. The reduced indicative baseline on the compensation of employees budget line item is on average 2.8 billion per year, which represents annually a budget shortfall of about 240 million rands per year. This is a significant problem for us. And clearly, we cannot continue to spend money that we do not have. Thus, we need to act speedily and in unison in dealing with this very complex challenge, because while we have to reduce expenditure, it is my intention that we should retain our talent. The funding pressures we face as a government have necessitated cutbacks in our operational budget, and they require us to become more strategic to ensure resource constraints do not unduly impact our international footprint and our international influence. We intend as a department to enhance our operational capacity in various key areas in the medium term. The first of these is the review of our organizational structure. We want to make our department more responsive despite its reduced budget in order to ensure that we are better organized. And one of these is through changing our structure to ensure that we are able to deliver on our mandate. We have far too many posts and these do not accord with the budget available to us. So we need to ensure we have an organizational structure fit for purpose, but which also allows us to expend our budget according to the regulations. We want to ensure, as we make these changes, that we are able to deliver on our mandate, which, as we state in our strategic plan, is the excellent execution of foreign policy and placing South Africa as an influential actor and partner on the international stage, while also contributing to the delivery of our country's domestic priorities and the advancement of a better Africa. We have reviewed our organizational structure and designed a new structure which we believe renders us a strategic instrument which will improve coordination, management, and leadership and allow us to support the implementation of our new policy framework as detailed in the Foreign Service Act of 2019. Part of the redress of our expenditure patterns has involved consultations related to the reduction of missions that are held by South Africa worldwide. We've had a series of meetings, and these have culminated in a decision by Cabinet and by DIRCO that we have to implement the hard but necessary decision to close 10 diplomatic missions abroad in response to our country's fiscal constraints, which have been made worse by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. I am aware that some of our colleagues in Treasury believe more than 10 should be closed, but I believe that we have taken the right decision. The missions, which include embassies, high commissions, and consulates, are being closed in a very systematic and careful administrative manner during the 2021-2022 financial year and will derive some savings for us. The decision we've had to take is deeply regretted by myself and by all of us in the department, and we express our confidence that the excellent diplomatic relations with the countries in which we will be closing missions, that these will continue through very effective use of non-resident mission assignments and through very close partnership with those countries' diplomatic missions, which are in South Africa. I would like to assure South African citizens resident abroad, businesses, as well as tourists from South Africa, that a smooth transfer of civic and immigration services to non-resident missions is currently underway, and we are trying to ensure we manage this as efficiently as possible. We advise all affected stakeholders to check with the relevant embassies and consulates general on the exact date of termination of local services. Further announcements on the transfer of civic and immigration services will also be made on the websites of DIRCO, the Department of Home Affairs, and at the affected missions. The list of missions that are earmarked for closure is as follows. The mission in Minsk, in Belarus, in the port in Port of Spain in Trinidad and Tobago, at the Holy See, the Vatican, Helsinki in Finland, Milan Consulate General in Italy, Muscat in Oman, the Suva Mission in Fiji, Bucharest in Romania, the mission in Lima, Peru, and the consulate in Chicago, United States of America. On our policy priorities, you would all be aware that even before the global community was confronted by the COVID-19 pandemic, our world had become more volatile, uncertain, complex, and somewhat ambiguous. It was difficult to know exactly where and how to position. This includes cross-cutting and border-blind challenges, including global warming, threats of terrorism, pandemics, and the threat of cybersecurity. In addition, the global governance architecture was and still is at a crossroads as it struggles to manage the multiple challenges afflicting people and the planet while governing relations between states as well as those between states and non-state actors. We as South Africa, therefore, have had to execute our foreign policy conscious and responsive to dynamic national and international context. And I might add, our continental context presents similar complex challenges. All of this is reflected in our department's strategic objectives. It is in this environment that South Africa promotes and protects its national interest. South Africa's national interest in foreign policy displays a people-centered, progressive, and developmental outlook, evidenced in our policy, particularly as this has been expressed in the post-liberation canon of promoting Pan-Africanism, South-South solidarity and cooperation, North-South cooperation, and multilateral engagement. In the speech we will present today, we will seek to do the following. We will reiterate the principles underpinning our foreign policy. We will reflect on our country's involvement in multilateral engagements. We are a very active member of the Community of Nations, and we are committed to multilateralism as enshrined in the United Nations Charter. We are active in all multilateral institutions where I believe we make important contributions, including in the G20, the G77 plus China, in BRICS, and indeed in the non-aligned movement. Thirdly, we will also confirm our solidarity with countries enduring hardship. The people of Palestine, the people of Western Sahara, and the people of Cuba know very well our firm solidarity with them as they face difficulties that we believe can and must be resolved peacefully and through diplomatic means. The people of Myanmar in their suffering join these compatriots, and we share their desire for freedom. I look forward to the debate by honorable members following the speech. In particular, I'm looking forward to the views and suggestions from members of Parliament on how we can, as South Africa, realize our vision of an African continent and a world that is prosperous, peaceful, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and united, and that leads into a world that is just and equitable. Thank you very much. I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that very good presentation. There is now an opportunity for us to take questions from the media. You know the drill. You raise your hand. Thereafter, you identify yourself and then your house, and then we'll get your question. You can also use the chat room. Peter, I see your hand. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister, for that presentation. I'd like to ask you, if I may, just about a couple of questions about Mozambique. So I believe you, the President and you met President Nyusi in Paris this week on the margins of the African Financial Summit. And I'd like to know whether you got any indication and whether any decision is pending on the extradition of Manuel Chang, which I know the Mozambique government has brought a court case asking our High Court to compel the Minister of Justice to extradite Mr. Chang. And then on the question of the insurgency, where we had a plan that's been presented by SADC at a ministerial meeting, which I attended also in Maputo on the 28th of April. The summit the next day was postponed, and it just seems to be postponed indefinitely. So I wondered if President Nyusi gave any indication of whether he's prepared to accept the proposal that was discussed in your ministerial meeting. Thank you.
Minister, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter always asks the difficult questions, really. He wants to be in the room where the discussions happen. With respect to the extradition of Minister Chang and the application that's in the courts, I was not privy to discussions on that matter. And I think since the matter is in the courts, the standard response of South Africa, whenever a matter relevant to the courts is discussed, is that we have full faith in our judiciary, and any case before the courts must be processed by them, and we are unable in any way to play a role as government. We are cited as respondents. The first hearing has been held, and I think we await the outcome of the case, and will make the appropriate representations as South Africa. On the matter of the postponed summit, certainly this was discussed, and a new date was proposed by the presidents. Mozambique does want SADC to be active in assisting to address this matter of the incursion by extremists in Cabo Delgado. And the date that the two principals discussed, I have now had a discussion with my counterpart, who's the chair of the ministerial organ, who has discussed with his principal, and we now have a date for the summit. So those are the two responses. Thank you.
Minister, there are some questions from our social media platforms. There's a question on Twitter about what else can South Africa do with regards to the situation in the Middle East, in particular in supporting the people of Palestine over and above the statements that have been issued by South Africa.
I think, from the side of South Africa, we took fairly strong action by withdrawing 2 years ago our ambassador from Israel. I am getting petitions, which I have directed to our government, calling on us to close the embassy in Israel, as our presence there is not serving the role we had hoped of helping to advance discussions toward peace and freedom for the people of Palestine. So this is something that we will continue to discuss. But in terms of what can be done, I believe the picket that has been initiated by various organizations, including, I hear, the South African Students' Congress, is a good move. We should be protesting on a regular basis, highlighting the plight of the people of Palestine, and any support that we can provide in humanitarian terms given the devastation that both the West Bank and other parts of Palestine have experienced, is support that South Africa should provide.
Thank you, Minister. I see, Peter, your hand is still up. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, actually, it's not a follow-up question. There is one. Perhaps the Minister would be so kind as to give us the date of the SADC summit. But apart from that, a question that I discussed with you a couple of months ago, Minister, and I'd just like to ask you for an update on the situation of I think it would be fair to say, former Deputy Ambassador to Sudan and her husband, who, as you know, have been implicated in a rather sort of garish kind of double murder case there. What has happened? You told me at the time in February that our intelligence and police would question them here, and then depending on what they came up with, they might be sent back to Khartoum to face trial. Then I subsequently heard that perhaps Interpol is involved. Could you just please tell me where we stand on that case? Thank you.
Thank you very much. When the SADC Secretariat sends out the notice with respect to the meeting dates we've discussed and confirmed those dates, Clayson will be able to provide you with the dates. I don't want to become an administrator and start announcing dates before the appropriate administrative office does its work. So I'm afraid it will be in this month of May, so it's before the end of May, but I really want to leave it to the SADC Secretariat, otherwise I become an executive secretary, and it's not a job I desire. On Sudan, we are addressing this matter. I've written to my colleague in state security, as well as my colleague in the police, to say that I don't think we've received the action and support that we believed we would receive, as I regard this case as a very, very important priority. But there are steps that I'm taking from the side of my office with respect to this matter. And I will say more once I have finalized the necessary legal consultations on the matter. But I don't think our officials serving in Sudan behaved in an appropriate manner.
Well, we're coming out of that briefing as declared by President Cyril Ramaphosa this year in South Africa, the year of Charlotte Maxeke, who would have turned 150 this year. International Relations Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor in the department's budget vote speech, continuing on that tack with the theme Building Back Better to advance the legacy of Charlotte Maxeke. Dr. Pandor speaking of several projects, including an awards ceremony that will, while honoring this legacy, will also scour the world looking for women and young people who work towards the international solidarity and cooperation. The minister says solidarity with the oppressed and marginalized is a cornerstone of South Africa's foreign policy. Therefore, continuing support and solidarity with who are enduring hardships, the people of Palestine, the Sahara and Cuba. The department is trying to change its expenditure patterns, the minister says, and in this effort, 10 diplomatic missions, embassies, high commissions and consulates abroad will be closed. Dates to still be given, but different ways of conducting diplomatic relations with the affected countries will be sought. Some of these countries, or in fact not just countries, but in parts of the countries, Minsk, Belarus, Port of Spain, Holy See, Trinidad and Tobago, the Milan Embassy in Italy, the Chicago Embassy in the USA. The Minister of International Relations there, Dr. Naledi Pandor, in her budget vote speech.